In narrating the history of beer's commodification and the triumph of pale lager, Hopped Up takes a global perspective, unlike the regional or national focus of much previous scholarship. Although beer is an inherently local product, generally uneconomical to ship long distances, the industry developed through intertwined forms of mobility, including the trade in beer as a commodity, the migrations of brewers and consumers, and the transfer of product knowledge and taste preferences. Mobility was particularly important during three key moments of transformation: the late medieval introduction of hopped beer, the 19th century industrialization and spread of lager, and the 21st century consolidation of global firms. Hopped beer spread out from northern Germany through seaborne trade as a premium good at first, but became an everyday item of consumption across large parts of Europe through the migration of skilled brewers and the transfer of technical knowledge. A similar pattern took place in the 19th century, as railroads and steamships transported new varieties of ale and lager, which then came to be manufactured locally by migrants and settlers. The 21st century concentration of brewing firms began with a growing trade in premium brands, such as Heineken and Guinness, but it was consolidated by capital transfers and the purchase of breweries, most notably Anheuser-Busch. Even craft beer was globalized through the same circuits of trade, migration, and knowledge that had carried pale lager a century earlier. Although the spread of pale lager may seem to illustrate the forces of globalization, in fact, this style has been successively reinvented around the world, from North American adjunct grains to Japanese microfiltration. Rather than simply a force for globalization, Pilsner was also a product of globalization. Indeed, brewers from the global south learned the art so well that they have come to dominate the industry in the last few decades. In looking at the history of beer within the framework of capitalism, there may be a tendency to overemphasize material factors at the expense of social and cultural meanings. Such thinking motivates the common notion that people brewed in the past because they did not have access to pure drinking water. It is true that water supplies were often contaminated in premodern cities, and alcohol does have antibacterial properties. But to purify water, boiling works fine, without the trouble of fermentation. Although beer does provide vitamins and minerals not otherwise available from grains, it is, at best, an inefficient dietary staple. One expert has calculated that even in the relatively efficient brewing industry of 16th century Europe, the nutritional loss in making beer instead of bread out of grain was something over 75%.